So we have a major shift in our Senate map, and this is going to be pretty shocking. I have moved, and let me show you the map. And so this is what our old map looked like. Okay, so the map in June. Now we have a shift in July. So the map in June, this is what we were looking at. Let me show you what we see now in July. This is what we're seeing now in July. Now I'm going to explain all of this to you and show you why we had to make some shifts when it comes to a few of these different states. We're going to do all of that in this video, but first off, if you guys can do me a favor, please like the video. If you're watching this video and you want to see more content like this, please consider subscribing to the channel. Okay, so let's get into it first. I want to start with the June map. Okay, so I want to go over the June map really quickly, and then I'll show you. The reason why we had this major shift is because we had two big pollsters put out information, and that does change things. And so we're going to take a look at a few of the different polls, but let's take a look at the June map. This is just 1 week ago, and this is the way I saw the Senate race going at the time. Okay, so if we're looking at, and we'll look at the 9 states that are in play. Okay, so we're looking at Alaska, Texas, Iowa, Michigan, Ohio, Maine, New Hampshire, North Carolina, and Georgia. Now, when we start with Georgia, we actually saw in the latest polling, we saw that Ossoff is widening his lead. And I think the latest poll showed him up by 13 points. And so right now, I would say that Ossoff has a pretty good lead in Georgia and most likely will win in Georgia. North Carolina. When it comes to North Carolina, you have a Democrat in Roy Cooper who's doing really well in the polls, and he continues to have a lead in North Carolina. So North Carolina, no change. Now, when we look at Maine, this is the first change. And so in Maine, we now have a poll. This is a Fox News poll, and Fox News, they put out some pretty good polls. So don't just think, oh, it's Fox News, so it's going to be slanted. They do a pretty good job. In most polls that I've seen, they do a pretty good job. So we have Fox News put out a poll. It was conducted between 6:23 and 6:27. You had 1,003 registered voters. Now, of course, registered voters, I like to see likely voters, but registered voters in this case isn't bad. The sample size is good. The margin of error there, plus or minus 3%. So that's good. Plattner at 47, Collins at 50. So this is the first poll that we've seen that Collins has the lead. Okay, so plus 3 within the margin of error. Okay, very, very close race, but it's still within that margin of error. So there's no clear leader, but this is the first time that we've seen Collins have a lead in a poll. Okay, if we go back, all we need to do is drop back and we look at the past polls. I mean, we can go all the way last year, October of last year, and we see Plattner leading. Now, what should be interesting, and I want you, let's focus in a little bit closer here. And what's really interesting about this race is just look at the pattern here. So we were back, we said back in October, November. So we'll get into this year. Okay, so in 2026, we saw Plattner at plus 11, then Plattner at plus 4, then Plattner plus 7, plus 7. So you see Plattner started to, we started to see a little bit of a lead there, plus 9 here. Now remember, we're going from the beginning of 2026 until now. So then Plattner at plus 7. Plattner went down a little bit there, plus 5, plus 9, plus 1, plus 3, plus 2, and now Collins has the lead. Now, what is significant about this? What's significant is if we move over to see when these polls were conducted, you see you had a poll here that was conducted between 5:13 and 5:26. You have another poll here that was conducted between 5:21 and 5:25. And then after, this is after the text message situation, that little scandal. After that, and this was Qantas Insight, that's when we started to see the polls change. Okay, so they were going up, kind of staying there. We had 9 points, 7 points, 5 points, 9 points. So these polls were good for Plattner. After that scandal, this is what we started to see. A plus 1, a plus 3, a plus 2, and now we're looking at a plus 3 for Collins. The average for Plattner right now is plus 0.7. Okay, so I mean, it's pretty much a dead heat right now. And if you guys saw a video that I posted a few days ago, I was talking about this very situation where Plattner needs to have like a double-digit lead in the polls in order to win. That's just my opinion, because Collins usually outperforms her polls. And so if we're looking at a situation where Plattner's ahead by, let's say, 3 points, or ahead by even 5 points in the polls, he might still lose, because we've seen that happen before with Susan Collins just in 2020. And so that's why when we're looking at this map now, and I made the adjustments, I had to say at this point, Maine is a toss-up. Maine is a toss-up because this last poll falls within that margin of error, so we're not going to give her too much credit for the poll, because Plattner could still have the lead, but we've been watching the trend, and the trend for Plattner is it's getting tighter and tighter, the races. And so right now, before I would look at the race and say, yeah, I think it still leans for Democrat, but now we have to look at it and realistically say, this race is too close to call. We don't know where it's going. And so I moved that to the toss-up column. Now, when it comes to New Hampshire stays the same. We have seen some late polling coming out, but Pappas is still leading in most of the polls. And so I haven't really seen a shift there. Now, when it comes to Michigan, there's really no change at this point. I mean, we're still waiting. We have to get past the primary to see who's going to be the nominee on the Democratic side. But the polling, I mean, it's pretty much the same. It's showing that the Democrat, whoever that Democrat is, would most likely have a slight lead. I think with McMorrow, you have three candidates running. So you have El Sayed, you have Stevens. El Sayed right now is the front runner. You have Stevens that's right behind him, and then you have McMorrow. When you see the polling for El Sayed and Stevens, they poll a little bit, slightly ahead within that margin of error, but slightly ahead of Rogers, the Republican. But McMorrow, she polled a little bit under Rogers. And McMorrow right now, she's not doing too well. I think a lot of the vote from McMorrow is going to El Sayed, and that's why El Sayed is the front runner. And so no real change in Michigan, no real change in Ohio as well. Now, we did have some polling coming out, at least one poll that showed Husted was ahead, but still within that margin of error. So there's no clear leader. Sherrod Brown had a few polls where he was leading as well. And so I would look at Ohio as still a toss-up. But we do have a change when it comes to Iowa. Okay, so that first change that I talked about, that favors Republicans, obviously, because if we're looking at a situation where it's leaning for a Democrat, for Plattner, and now we've moved it to toss-up, that benefits Republicans, okay? Now, when we go to Iowa, it's the reverse. This is now, in my opinion, a toss-up, and it favors Democrats. And the reason why I moved this to a toss-up, if you take a look at the latest polls, so if we're looking, and as I stated, the New York Times, Siena, and Fox News, those are the two latest polls. So we saw, and even if we go back to the Signal, we can do that one first. If you look at that poll, that was conducted between 616 and 619, 600 likely voters, margin of error there, plus or minus 4%. You have TEC at 44, you have Henson at 46, so the spread there is +2. That falls within that margin of error, so there's no clear leader. If we move forward, New York Times, Siena, that was conducted between 615 and 627. 600 likely voters, margin of error there, plus or minus 4.7. You have TEC at 46. You have Henson at 48. So it's +2 for Henson. That also falls within the margin of error. And then when we move to the Fox News poll, this was conducted between 623 and 627. 1,003 registered voters. As we stated, I would prefer it be likely voters, but we do have registered voters. If we're looking at the sample size here, I do like the sample size over 1,000. That's good. And you look at the sample size of the two right below, you see it's only 600. And then when we look at the margin of error, which is really important, you have plus or minus 3%, which is good compared to the other two polls that are in the fours. Okay, so although, I mean, when you start looking at polls, sometimes you have to, there's a trade-off, right? So if you have the registered voters, you have more of a sample size, you have a lower margin of error, but they're registered voters, so that just doesn't mean that they vote. They could have never voted before, but they registered back when they were younger. Okay, so TEC at 50%. You have Hinson at 46%. So TEC +4. This also falls within the margin of error, but you see TEC with a 4-point lead, whereas Hinson in the other polls, she had a 2-point lead, and the margin of error was higher. And so that is one reason why I moved Iowa from a lean Republican to now a toss-up. And the other reason is this: looking at the governor's race between Lane and Sand. Look at what's going on here with Sand. He's the Democrat. He's winning all the polls. I mean, the last 3 polls, he's ahead. And if we look at the latest poll, this Fox News poll, this was conducted between 623 and 627. Same thing, 1,003 registered voters, margin of error there, plus or minus 3%. Look at Sand is at 53. Lane is at 44. The spread there is +9. Okay, so this is outside of the margin of error. Now, the reason that I bring this race up because if we're looking at a situation where a Democrat wins the governor's race, he is most likely going to help TEC. And so TEC could ride his coattails a little bit. And so when we're looking at the situation there with the race for governor and the Senate race, we can realistically say, okay, you have TEC ahead in the latest poll. You have Sand ahead in, the governor's race. And so there's something going on in Iowa where we could realistically say, this is a toss-up. This is now a toss-up instead of a lean Republican. Okay, and then when we move to one more state here, we're taking a look at Alaska. Okay, now with Alaska, I've been saying this for a very long time. Peltola is leading in all the polls. And it was true. She had a lead, and the vast majority of the polls that we were looking at, she had a lead. They do have ranked choice voting, so it makes things a little bit interesting when it comes to that. But we do have a poll, and let me show you that. We have a poll that's showing Sullivan ahead. And here's the poll, and this is coming from New York Times Siena. Okay, and remember, Sullivan is the incumbent Republican. Now, he was behind in all the polls, but we were seeing more local polls. Now we have a New York Times Siena poll here, and it's showing, this was conducted between 6:15 and 6:29. You have 593 likely voters, so I like the fact that they use likely voters. Sample size, I would like to see a larger sample size. When it comes to margin of error, I had to look that up. It's 5%. And so Sullivan is at 47. Peltola is at 45. And so it's Sullivan +2. So this is the first poll this year that we've seen from a major pollster. And they're showing Sullivan does have the lead. However, it's within that margin of error, which means the margin of error is 5%. So this race could very easily be completely reversed, and Peltola has the lead, and Sullivan is losing. So we don't know, okay? But the fact that we do have that poll, and I've always said, when it comes to Alaska, at the time, just a week ago, I would say Alaska leans for Democrats. And it's interesting because Peltola was leading in all the polls, and that's the main reason why I was saying, you know what, it's a toss-up. It's still a toss-up, but it leans ever so slightly. It leans for Democrats. But now we realistically have to say that it is just a clear toss-up, because now you have an A-rated pollster that's weighing in on this, and they're saying that it's no clear leader. They're showing that Sullivan does have the slight lead, that 2 points, but because of that margin of error, there's no clear leader. So we realistically have to say, yes, it's a toss-up. It's anyone's race. But it shouldn't be a toss-up. It shouldn't be no clear leader, because Sullivan is the incumbent. He's the incumbent, and you have a challenger that's neck and neck with you. That's a huge problem for the Sullivan campaign. If I'm that campaign manager, I put on my campaign manager hat, I'm very concerned. Just merely being an incumbent Republican in Alaska could mean you lose your seat, because you don't have any real advantage with that. Okay, so this is the way the map looks. Okay, so this is the way the map looks for July. And there's a few races that we haven't even gone over. We didn't go over Texas. I didn't make any changes to Texas yet. I mean, we're looking at, you have Tallarico winning one poll, you have Paxton winning the next poll, and they're just kind of going back and forth. I'm looking for some momentum on either side. We haven't really seen enough momentum. It's just kind of going back and forth when it comes to the polls. And so we'll have to see what happens in the future with that. And so looking at the current count when it comes to the seats, Democrats right now, Democrats and Independents are at 48, Republicans are at 48, and then we have 4 true toss-ups: Alaska, Iowa, Ohio, and Maine. Now, if we're looking at this, what does this mean for Democrats? Their pathway to take back control of the Senate. How would they be able to do it? Well, they need to win 3 seats. So out of the 4 that we're looking at right now, Democrats need to win 3 of them. It's going to be very hard. It's not going to be easy, but we could see a few different scenarios. And the easiest scenario, we've been talking about this over and over again when it comes to Democrats, their easiest pathway, or at least their easiest pathway a week ago, was through Maine, Ohio, and Alaska. They can win those 3 states out of the states that we're looking at, then they'll take back control of the Senate. Because remember, they need to net 4 seats, and we're counting North Carolina. So North Carolina is already on the map. We're thinking that Roy Cooper will win North Carolina, but they would need to win North Carolina, Maine, Ohio, and Alaska. That is the most likely pathway for them moving forward. However, now that we're looking at this map, things are opening up just a little bit, because we have Iowa on the board. And remember, before, Iowa was leaning for Republicans. So now if we have Iowa on the board, and realistically, if Democrats can win in Iowa, they win in Iowa, that opens things up for them, because now they have a little bit more space. So if they were to lose, let's say they win in Alaska, they win in Ohio, but they do lose Maine. Let's say Susan Collins, she's able to pull it out in Maine. They will still have 51. They'll still have control of the Senate. Democrats will. And so that's why when we're looking at Iowa, I think the biggest shift that we've seen right now is in Iowa. And that's the biggest shift in favor of Democrats. Now, the biggest shift in favor of Republicans, it's Maine. It's Maine, because Susan Collins now, we have at least one poll that's showing that she's ahead. And that is the first time that we've seen that in over 8 months. So that's something that's very significant. And so now I want to pass off to you. What do you think about the new map? Let me know. Well, I think we'll do this every week. We'll take a look at the map and see if there are any things that have changed. But I want you to let me know, would your map look like this? Let me know in the comments below. If you like this video, please give me a thumbs up. Please subscribe for more. And remember, stay informed, stay engaged, and I'll talk to you in the next one. Bye. So that's all we have for this video. Make sure if you guys want to send me an email, you can do that, david@thetecshow.com. Like the video, subscribe for more, and check out these videos over here for some more great content. Talk to you later. Bye.